Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the chance to hear from Nadine and Vincent. I've got notes that would give me at least 45 minutes just reflecting on and making connections with what you both presented. But I wanna sort of at least bring myself, right? Like the strange little background that I have. So I wanted to start off by saying I don't have it on my name, but my pronouns are he, him. Um, and I wanted to just sort of pick up on a little bit of a thread and then move into the work that I do. So I would get to be a little bit of a purist, right? I don't have a corporate background. I don't really have a career that until recently felt like I had to risk too much in order to do what I wanted to do. Um, so I've been able to take a look at the concept of meaning and purpose and meaningful work really from what it looks like from the human level first, and then thinking about how it applies to specific situations. And, my practical advice is very different than the advice you've already heard so far. And I want to kind of acknowledge that, but I want to then instead give us a language that we use in this area that can maybe pull together things because we are living in a time of a lot of uncertainty. We're living in a time of intentional uncertainty, right? Where certainty is being attacked. Even just the idea of reality, of truth, of facts, of ways of knowing, of we have all these competing versions of events that we've all experienced. So when we're literally in a state where we have to figure out how to construct reality and then share it in ways that give us courage, that help us really share encouragement, then I think it's helpful to sort of zoom back just a little bit to what I do. And the ideas I want to have in your head that I pulled from, in particular, the many very cool ideas from Nadine and Vincent are the idea of what happens when we're shaken out of being on autopilot and what autopilot is from Vincent, and then the portfolio life from Nadine. And I'll come back to these sorts of things because I think they end up at the place where Vincent handed the baton off to me, which was trying to not hide yourself, but be yourself and bring yourself. So, meaning in life, very, very broad. It's not the most broad. We're not trying to figure out the universe. We're not trying to figure out, is there a God? Which God is it? Which rules are we supposed to obey? Which rules can we comfortably laugh off? Right? Which seems to be a lot of the debate that people sometimes have when they think about meaning. Instead, it's about meaning in one person's life at a time, drawing on what builds that sense of meaning and understanding the consequences and strengths that can be carried forward when we do have that sense of meaning. And I want to talk a little bit about where the modern interest in this concept came from, which really was from the work of one person, right? So if we wonder how influential people can be, I want to start with this idea. This person was a prisoner for a long period of time, and in fact was imprisoned because of his identities. He was imprisoned because of a particular idea behind a sort of nationalist government had taken over and was capturing people and rounding them up and imprisoning people because of the identities that they had. But not all the identities, right? So this was someone, and many people felt this way, who felt that they had a strong national identity, but because of an ethnic identity that the people in charge felt was more important, this person spent years in prison. When he was rounded up, he had a manuscript sewn into the lining of his coat, his life's work around meaning. This person was Viktor Frankl. The prisons that he were in were four different concentration camps in and around the German occupied territories. The one family member he ever saw again in his life after he was captured was his sister, and everyone else he lost. Our history is full of people who were imprisoned, made small, pulled out of their context, targeted for some part of who they are, and then who then later came and showed tremendous pathways towards a better world. I mean, almost all the people we admire, and all the people whose legacy we enjoy when it comes to peace, when it comes to getting along together, when it comes to hope, somehow those people have gone through these experiences. So I really just want to have that highlight it for us, right? So when we talk about meaning, it gets thrown in with the well-being movement and all these sorts of things, but we're talking about someone who was working with clients who are suffering in a very anti-Semitic city. Vienna was actually, if you take a look at the history of where anti-Semitic ideology came to power with Adolf Hitler, it was activated for him in Vienna, which is where Viktor Frankl was living at the time. So this was someone who was existing in a world where people were attacking his identity and undermining his credibility. And then, of course, he suffered alongside millions in concentration camps. That's where meaning comes from. So it's not a meaning isn't something that we're supposed to necessarily only enjoy when we're sipping a cocktail and have a beautiful view in front of us. Meaning is a vital component even when we're suffering, even when we don't know what's happening, even when we're made to feel powerless. So hopefully we can reconnect with this concept in this time when I believe intentionally we're being made to feel all of those things if we care about coming together for a future for everybody. So how do we break down meaning into areas that are useful? I want to give you three lenses from this field. Lens number one, we call coherence, which is like making sense. The opposite of coherence is chaos. I can't make sense of what's happening. I think a lot of people feel that way and have for a long time, maybe since 9/11, right, in this country. We're still reeling from what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be safe? How far are we willing to go to feel a sense of consistency and protection? But we need to understand ourselves. And so a lot of what happens in when it comes to diversity, when it comes to identity, when it comes to equity is us understanding ourselves and the world around us, the gifts that we have, the strengths that we have, the unique challenges we face, where we can bond with other people and where we can come together with other people to understand those challenges. This is what is being attacked in a lot of ways right now because we do see people living in two parallel universes at this point. But we need to be able to come together in order to agree on what's happening and find paths forward for each other. So if you're looking at your life, you don't know how to find a path forward. You don't know how to figure out what the next career move is. You don't know how to position yourself or recover your sense of financial security that might have been lost. Um, that can be a coherence thing. How does the world look to you? How do you build from the ground up again a sense of predictability, consistency, and a model for the world around you? So think about coherence. This is also a gift we can try to work with other people to build, right? To help them understand their experience. Imagine it like a story. What chapter of your story are you in? What can you understand right now? And how can you help someone else gain clarity in their own lives? So when it comes to meaning, it's always about receiving and giving, right? It's never about just one person sitting on it's not the little prince sitting on a tiny little planet understanding everything. Even the little prince needed help to understand what his role in the world was. The next step is purpose. This is the one that gets a lot of the headlines. It gets stuff done, so to speak. If you have a strong sense of purpose, you're motivated. This is what Frankl saw in the concentration camps. People who had something to live for after the suffering, people who could take what's happening to them and draw upon something to respond with a thirst for life, a thirst to make it through so that we can make it something better on the other side of this calamity. That's purpose. The model of purpose that I personally try to understand in my own life, in my tiny, tiny little way, is Nelson Mandela in the prison in Robben Island, right? So Nelson Mandela, the great freedom leader for South Africa, spent 2 decades plus in a prison, only being able to talk to what we can presume to be a racist prison guard representing everything that suppressed him and the people that he knew growing up. He never gave up on purpose. He had no way of having this future unfold when all he was talking to was someone who stood against everything that he stood for. And yet his purpose persisted. He didn't know if he would get there. He didn't know it's still not done, right? If we take a look at, I mean, South Africa is a very interesting example right now in our current time. But if we look at, is it is it the dream fulfilled of the people who are fighting for freedom for everyone in that country? It's still not done, right? So purpose doesn't have to be done. It's the striving for it. It's the working for it that feels important. And so I think of Nelson Mandela, year 10, not even halfway through imprisonment, still working on that purpose. So when we've lost our jobs, when we've lost our way, when we feel like paths forward are shut down to us, it's hard to see a sense of purpose. But purpose is always there. It's like a rushing river going downhill. What are your values? How do we connect with what you care about in life? How do we find other people in other pathways? And how do we help other people feel encouraged as well? So that's another lens, the motivational lens, the action lens. We have the thinking and understanding lens. We have the motivation and action lens. Some people gravitate towards one or more than the other. But I think also right now, especially right now, we have the third lens, which is significance. Significance says that I matter. It says that life is worth living, that I have inherent value. And if what you're hearing from some in the world around you is that you don't have value, that you don't matter, that it's not worthwhile for you to try, then that's a crisis of significance. And that's a lens that maybe we need to open up and share our vulnerability around as well. So again, there are a lot of people who feel invisible, who feel without any power, who feel like they're actually even denied their existence right now. There's also a lot of people, as we heard from Vincent, around the world who don't understand why we're in this motion, in this mode. We're actually people that we rub shoulders with who might be going along with some of these changes also don't get it, but don't know what to do. So if everyone feels like they matter, if everyone feels like there's a significant and valuable step that they can take and we can take together, that can help empower us, can backfill some resilience for us so that we're not alone. Now, how do I loop this back to autopilot? Autopilot is what we're doing when things are going fine. We don't have to think through, is our purpose working or is it being blocked? Do I understand myself and the circumstances I'm working in? Right? It's coming naturally. Everything fits, everything moves pretty well. Being knocked out of autopilot sucks. It's hard. If you choose to be the person who likes to never have autopilot on, and you love lots of stimulation, you're constantly questioning things, that's fantastic. But if you're not that person, then the fast-paced change of the world has been scary for you, and you want to cling to the first big idea that seems to explain everything. And I think we can see that temptation right now. So when we start trying to reach out to be courageous, to make changes, a lot of the questions that were targeted towards me, hopefully people are going to realize we have to find individual paths, but also collective paths together that are unique for the goals that we want to accomplish. But one of those goals should be to reach people where they're at. And a lot of people are debilitated by complexity. A lot of people need something simple. So if we hear loving or love-oriented and connection-oriented language that feels simple, that we can imagine can connect with folks who just need, they don't need the 983 pages of footnotes that we all know goes into every single moment in life right now. They just need something simple that can help them come closer to each other. Spread those messages, capture them, work them into your own words. Try to preserve in all this complexity some of the simplicity of what we need in order to bring together the folks who really prefer any simple answer over any more complexity. So, and then personally, though, we probably individually need complexity in all of our lives. So the portfolio life that I'm thinking about here taps into the last concept I want to give you, which is sources of meaning. Right? So if I ask you, where does meaning come from in your life, or what part of your life gives you meaning? If you're like people around the world, 60 to 80% of you will, or 60%, 80% of the time, you'll say something like family or relationships or community or friends. You might also say your work. You might also say hope and dreams. You might say your beliefs. You might say your health. You might say fair treatment. You might say a lot of different things, but each of these things that gives us meaning, maybe you say nature. Each of those things can be considered a source of meaning, and research suggests that we need somewhere between 4 and 6 of those in order to sort of maximize our sense of meaning. It's a very clear case where diversity is better, right, in our own circumstances. And I think whenever we need to be looking at something that's complex, having a lot of different experiences, a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different language, and a lot of different areas where we can invest is a critical factor. So we need portfolio lives that represent a diversity of sources of meaning that we can invest in. We also need portfolio lives together where we have a lot of people with different perspectives, strengths, skills, and experiences that can come together, because what we're facing is not one button that if we just remembered where we put that button and pressed it, everything would go back to normal. We're facing something complex and we need each other to deal with it.